Hello, and welcome to what is the first of a series of videos where I'll be breaking down and delving quite deep into my artistic process, into brush techniques, composition techniques, and just a bit of context behind how I create my work. So let's begin. As you can see, I start off with a circle just underneath the figure. This helps me with camera angle. Imagine on top of a cube. What shape would that circle be? That kind of indicates a rough idea of where I want the camera to be. And in this instance, I wanted it quite high up so you can see the range of Sangat that was sitting around Guru Sahib at this time. From there, drawing the figures is very simple, blocking out colours, blocking out the shapes very simply, just to get a rough idea of what the final product would look like from a very small image. Then from there, I go quite promptly into detailing. Now, before going into detailing, as it's going through, in terms of colour choice, it's never about choosing the completely correct colour, but choosing something relatively near what you want the final product to look like. In this instance, the client that requested this photo requested for a very warm, very orange-like, autumn-like scene. And so I looked through Purathan historical references as well of Guru Gobind Singh Ji, and found one that had similar colours to this colour scheme that the client wanted. And so I shaped the image around that colour scheme. And now, as you can see, I'm detailing Guru Sahib. I've done the dastar to match what Guru Sahib would have wore at that time, the clothing. But the form of Guru Sahib was very static. I didn't like it. It felt very, stuck. So I'll get back to that. What I've done here is I've added small extra details, just slowly building the image, blocking out where the leaves are going to go, the shadow of the leaves are going to go on the floor. And this is the part where I've then gone back and reworked Guru Sahib because the pose just was not working for me. So as you can see, I kind of am in a habit of doing the final sketch very early on and then colouring around that. So here I'm trying to make Guru Sahib feel a lot more expressive in what they were doing, the emotion that was brought out from playing the Saj. And I wanted to show this Jodi player here. Jodi is a very big version of a tabla, which is very bassy. It's very, very deep sounding. I wanted the Sangats to feel really imbued in the love of Guru Sahib singing, where they're all looking Guru Sahib's direction. And Guru Sahib's just lost in the Kirtan, connected to that one. In their own space, in their own stillness, inspiring everyone else around them to be in that stillness. That is the purpose of having a Satguru, in this instance, Guru Gobind Singh Ji. And as you can see, I continue to block out the colours. And I wanted to just mention the top left corner, where is kind of a wall, a very white coloured wall. And on the top of that is a very bright white. That's literally the colour white there, which I don't usually use in art, as you may hear as an artist. But this was something I was inspired by after seeing the aftermath of rainfall. In my area in the UK, it rains a lot. And I saw a roof that was white in colour, and it was glimmering in the sun, bright as day. It's brighter than anything you could see because it was reflecting the sun. And so it gave me the idea of how can I portray this in an image. And so this was my first attempt at creating that sort of atmosphere where you see the post-rain shimmer of all around. And so as we continue, I add detail into the dastar as well, the turbans, really bringing an atmosphere of historical accuracy as well, with the way their turbans, the dastar looked, the way the clothes looked, the kapre. And so Guru Gobind Singh Ji wore attire very similar to Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji as well. You had two kind of collars that would stretch down the chest, down to their waist, and you would tie it there. And so I was actually considering the outfits that Guru Gobind Singh Ji has historically wore and which one would fit this image. And I felt that the one that you can see on the screen now is the one that fit best. And so with color choice, I usually use 2 to 3 shades of the same color and just blend them. So you've got the mid tone, a lighter tone, and then a shadow tone. And then mixing those 3 usually will create a finished product. If you want to add a few more shimmers, a few lighter tones, a few darker tones, just to really create contrast, that can also help as well. In terms of saj, so you can see I'm drawing a sarangi here, which is another instrument. There's so many different instrument sajes, and I'm very thankful to be a part of the UK Gurmat Sangeet Academy, which has been set up by Dr. Harjinder Lally. Something that I very, very commend for his persistence in bringing these sajes into the public eye. So they've been around in public television here in the UK. They've got quite a large social media presence. They recently performed at the Victoria and Albert Museum, which I was thankful to have attended. I also learned saj from them. I learned tabla from them as well. So a little plug there, but this inspired me. The Gurmat Sangeet Academy inspired me to delve into these historical sajes. So it wasn't just historically accurate imagery anymore. It was more than that. It was the Kirtan that they used to have, the clothing that they used to wear. All these things really contributed to this image. So it's funny how life experiences can accumulate into an image over time. And so Guru Gobind Singh Ji here is shown playing the Jodi, playing the Taus, which is Persian for peacock. And the Taus is a huge instrument. Some people believe it was created by Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji, others by Guru Gobind Singh Ji. I thought it'd just be easier to have Guru Gobind Singh Ji playing the Taus because it's in the future anyways. It kind of if it was there in Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji's time, it would have still been there in Guru Gobind Singh Ji's time. So that was the best instruments to stick with. So then you've got the Taus, you've got the Sarangi. Behind the Sarangi is a Tanpura, which keeps the beat. So imagine Teen Tal. These Tals, it would keep it in beat. Then you've got the Jodi in front. Behind the Jodi is the Rabab, which was famously played by Mridanna Ji, Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Muslim best friend, who would travel with Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And so right here what you see is me putting a multiplier layer, so a dark brown colour, and I'd choose the multiply setting on the layers to create almost like a dark wash of the image, where I'd then rub out the highlights to make Guru Sahib and the Sikhs stand out more, and also to create an atmosphere of the sun glimmering through the shady trees. And then from this point, I just continue detailing on drawing the galgi, the chakra. And yeah, just creating as much deep detail as possible. I don't know how much this will be shown on the recording and how quickly it will go through it, but generally it takes me the longest to finish a piece through detailing like this, because it's so fine, it's so intricate, and oftentimes I'm just zooming in further and further, and I can get lost in that, which can be a pain sometimes, because you lose yourself in the details, and sometimes being a perfectionist does take a lot of time up. And so you see here under the Dastara, I'm adding a few very minimal highlights, creating a very shimmery, silky-like texture. The person I'm drawing right now, sat right at the back, purely in love with what's being sung, is actually by Nandalal Ji, a very, very renowned poet, a contemporary of Guru Gobind Singh Ji. So he was renowned in all of India and Persia. He was even in the court of Aurangzeb as well, where he gained fame. However, Aurangzeb was one that was very brute force, and he was pushing his own rhetoric, his own beliefs, and his agenda to move Bhai Nandalalji's writings to promote Islam and for Bhai Nandalalji to become a Muslim as well. However, this experience really did scare Bhai Nandalalji, which caused him to back away from Aurangzeb and reach out to different poets, where he then met his beloved Guru Gobind Singh Ji. And Guruji accepted him really wholeheartedly, took him in, and he became a very well-established poet in Guru Gobind Singh Ji's Kavi Darbar, which was this huge darbar from poets from all over India all over Asia actually, came down to share their writings. And Bhai Nandalalji contributed in so much. And he's written many compositions praising Guru Sahib and praising the Sikh way of living. So I thought, who else to add in such a picture than Bhai Nandalalji, who's written some beautiful ghazals, right, that really touch the heart. So I then decided to add a few more instruments in there, the flute and the sitar as well, which aren't necessarily Sikh instruments, but they were very, very well renowned throughout India, and well established these instruments were. Now, what you'd see in this modern context is the rise of the harmonium, which is commonplace now, and this is why these instruments largely faded away. Now, researching into this, individuals like Bhai Avtar Singh Ji, who kept up this tradition, he had lineage all the way back to Guru Sahib's time, where they would sing such compositions as rags, these beautiful different rags, in addition to the ones written in Guru Granth Sahib Ji as well. And so, separating Sikhi from its practices to its culture, as a culture we've always had these instruments, because in the practices of rag, these instruments supplement it in such a beautiful way. However, as British influence came in, the introduction of German-made harmoniums came in, which pushed away all of these hard-to-learn sajas for something a lot easier. But that also reduces the discipline, the culture, the history, so much. And also the ras, the pure colours, the rags, the colours, rang as well, that come out from these rags are reduced when you're using instruments like the harmonium. Not to say that it's bad, you're still singing those rags, but the effectiveness that these instruments have is monumental. Now, as you can see, I'm actually experimenting with something live here, which is to create a shadow of leaves on the floor using different layer filters, you could say. And so this was the luminosity setting, which you can find in layers on Photoshop or Procreate. And I mapped it to the perspective layer on the floor. And I do have a perspective grid. It's not shown on the video, but it's only available on Procreate. It is available on Photoshop. You just need certain extensions, but for this context, it worked perfectly. It felt like the shadow. It saved me a bunch of time as well, because it meant that I could use these texture brushes to create an abundance of leaves to all look quite accurate. The only place that I did struggle with was that wall behind, just on the left. Just getting the texture right with the angle of how the sun would come down and how it would affect the leaves. And so once again, I'm just working through all of the detailing that I can. I'm adding a few more leaves just to fill up the gaps and any spaces. I'm filling in the atta that's put on top of the larger baya of a jodi. And yeah, making small adjustments where I could. Sometimes I get lost in the details, as you can see. I've still got lots of work to do on the sarges, but yeah, I get distracted quite quickly, I'll be honest. Okay, I've started on the sarges. So I used a historical reference for this sarge. I'm not sure of the original owner, but for the daus, it's very rare to find them to have been preserved. You've got many rababs, many sarangis, but it's very hard to find certain instruments, especially going back to Guru Sahib's time. The references for these instruments being used are from sources, pre-colonial sources like Suraj Prakash or any other granth from that time. And I do take feedback as well, so I'd usually have a focus group where I'll send certain projects that I'm working on, so they can relay back to me any feedback, any angles that are wrong. So like the woman on the left, her knee was a bit out of proportion, out of perspective. The hands of the Singh next to her. So it's just small adjustments that can make a big difference to the final piece. And for clothing and stuff like that, the references that I use have limited over time. It's a practice thing for any artists that are listening. For years, I would draw anime characters, I'd draw Marvel characters, I'd draw their capes, for example. That's a good place to say. Capes or just like loose clothing. Those things can be really beneficial in creating a deep understanding of how to draw folds in clothes and anatomy as well. That's another subject, but it just comes with experience and time and practice. And I've been honing this for 15 plus years. Since I was a kid, I've been drawing consistently. Anything I'd watch on TV, any comics I'd read, any games I was playing at the time, I would draw all of them. In school, I wouldn't even do my maths exam. I'd be drawing the whole time. It was, yeah, do your homework, but consistently drawing really helped me long term. And digital art was something I only started during the 2020 pandemic time, where I would just be drawing all day and all night. And not to say overdoing it did play a part, because it had its own disadvantages, but I would push myself beyond my limits to create as much as possible and learn deeper and deeper into brush techniques, into clothing techniques, into colours as well, colour theory. So I really did try and fast track my way to understanding these things, but it's a constant learning process. I'm always looking back and taking on new ideas, new techniques, even new brushes that have helped me so much in recent weeks and months on certain projects. I will have a brush pack available as well. So, yeah, that's something to look out for as well. Another thing is filling details and background as well is very important. So where I'm drawing that tree now, it brings out that Singh's other arm, his left arm, the one that's holding the Tanpura. So you'll find that you must have contrasting colours to really make your characters in the image pop out. And so many of the artifacts that you can see in this image are opposing colours, and I've done that on purpose to be able to highlight them better. Now I've added blues, very, very subtle blues, just to create a sense of natural hues of what you'd see in everyday life. You see a lot of light blues. Instead of like grey being a colour of shade, it's a blue, especially with white objects. Now this is, you could say, just the sky's blue, but that's the way things work. So one thing I would change on this image is the way the strings are placed on the daus. I believe I did get a bit of feedback after creating this image just on the placement of the structure of the daus itself, because it's slightly off. It's something that only a Sarge player would notice, but it's something that I would then adapt and then create for a version 2 of this image. But on to my point about consistency. It's very important to have a consistent practice with this sort of craft. And it's, to start off, it is from the heart what comes out. So whatever shows I'd like, I'd draw. Whatever I felt passionate about would be what I would create. It does you do come to hurdles, and it's a matter of pushing through those hurdles. There'll be a lot of times where I'd be sitting there 2, 3 in the morning, and I'd be doubting myself. I'd be constantly pressuring myself to keep creating, and I'd put myself into burnout consistently. I was inconsistent burnout. So it's important to have a routine, but to also know when you need to push yourself. Because many a time I did push myself beyond my limits, yes. It did come with many disadvantages. I struggled with a bit of health problems due to my lack of sleep, lack of consistency. But I did manage to develop my skill. So sometimes it's how badly do you want to create art, and what compromises will you have for that. Now, for me personally, my health wasn't a compromise I could put out much longer, because I was pushing myself way too hard. I wasn't sleeping much. I was working a full-time job and creating into the night every night for a couple of months, and it did me very good, but I had to, for the sake of my health, create something a lot more sustainable. And so we're coming to the final detailing now, where I've done peacock feathers on the back of the daus. I'm adding some small details into the background, very, very small intricacies into the instruments where I got feedback from other Sarge players as well. And right, so as we finish up, I was very, very pleased when I first got this commission, because it's something that was so close to my heart as well. Because it's not only portraying Guru Gobind Singh Ji in a light that isn't nearly as prevalent as it should be, but it's also giving community. It's Guru Sahib giving community to the Sangat. And I feel that's so, so important and vital for the people of today. For Guru Sahib wasn't this untouchable, as many people may portray them as. Guru Sahib was amongst the Sangat. In Chaupai Sahib, Guru Gobind Singh Ji has said, Hamari karo haath te racha, that take our hand. Hamari refers to not just my hand, not just the Sangat's hand, but all of us. Maharaj, guide us all. And now for us, Guru Gobind Singh Ji is our guide to that divine, to develop our understanding, our minds, to separate our mind from our internal spirit, and to create a deep sense of stillness within us. And that is what I feel is the most impactful takeaway from this path of Sikhi, is to develop that internal stillness within. And just imagining the Kirtan that would have been sung here in Guru Gobind Singh Ji's time is truly profound. It's something that I cannot put into words how incredible that would be to hear. And to conclude, I'm very, very deeply thankful to Guru Sahib for guiding me in creating such a piece. Thank you, Waheguruji. Thank you, Sangat Ji, for listening.